A car will explode if you shoot it in a certain spot, right? Well, how about the idea that natural products are always healthier? Some facts have been floating around so long that you just stop questioning them. Well, that's what I'm here to do today. From treating back pain to comforting a baby when they cry, I'm Mike with List 25, and join me as I debunk well-known facts. When the news of a sex tournament in Sweden circulated on the internet, it's no surprise that it piqued many people's interests. If nothing else, the pure logistics of it all were fascinating. How could you judge a winner? Who was even eligible? And what exactly were they expected to perform? Disappointed for anyone who considers themselves a sex athlete, though, Sweden is not hosting a sex tournament. Apparently, the fake news originated with a Swedish strip club owner who submitted an application to the Swedish Sports Confederation for sex to become an official sport. Needless to say, that application was denied. But it was enough to spawn a cycle of news reaching far and wide across the world, getting a whole lot of people very excited. Has anyone ever told you to slow down while you're eating? Oh my god, all the time. Next time they do, point them to anteaters. These sleepy mammals trawl through the dirt and grass to scavenge for, as their name suggests, ants, but also termites and other insects. And because they don't have teeth, anteaters consume their food whole without so much as a chew. But an anteater might take offense if you describe them as inhaling their food. There's actually a much more complicated process going on underneath the surface. Anteaters slurp up small rocks and other objects to help break down food inside their stomach. I have never been so glad to have teeth. This fact may have spread because the image of it is, well, pretty comedic. As the fact goes, when a plane flies overhead, penguins become so focused on it that they fall backwards. There's a little more to the story, though. It was first observed by British pilots who did in fact see penguins stumbling backward as they flew over, but it had nothing to do with their overconcentration. It was because planes flying at low altitudes generate an enormous amount of noise, which scares penguins and triggers them into panic, causing them to lose their happy feet. Here's something you won't see in a modern surgery theater: a naked flame underneath a wound to seal it up. But for centuries, in a time before stitches, precise instruments, and antibiotics were available, doctors believed it was the best way of stopping an infection. I mean, sounds kind of logical, right? If the wound is sealed up, then there's not much chance for bacteria to get it. Well, turned out to be wrong. Not only does it not work to prevent an infection, it actually makes it more likely for a wound to become infected because tissue is damaged. They had a hot idea, but unfortunately scientists sent it up in flames. Are you a gamer? Well, then you'll be familiar with certain mechanics and physics used in video games. One of those is that basically anything you shoot will blow up. Cars, fuel, grenades. Unfortunately, the real world doesn't quite work like that. While it is technically possible for a hand grenade to explode after being shot, it is incredibly unlikely. That's because a bullet colliding with a grenade doesn't automatically pull the pin, which is required to cause an explosion. It needs to penetrate deeply past a hard outer shell through the inside and ignite the detonator. Still, I'd actually rather keep those effects in video games. More fun. Speaking of shooting things, you might have seen movies where policemen shoot open locks with their guns. It definitely saves the tedious process of picking it, but how realistic is it? As it turns out, not very. Any high-security padlock worth its salt should hold up to the direct impact of a bullet. In a series of experiments, a competitive shooter wasn't able to break through any high-security models. As for the low-security padlocks, though, that's actually a different story. Most of these broke open with a single shot. While we often hear about atoms being the building blocks of everything around us, they are not the smallest unit of matter. There are even tinier particles lurking within atoms, like protons, neutrons, and electrons. Now, while an atom isn't the absolute smallest thing out there, it is the smallest unit of a chemical element. So, in a way, it's still the smallest piece you can have of something, like gold or oxygen. There's a lot more to color blindness than most people realize. For starters, not everyone with it sees the world in shades of gray. In fact, there are different types of color blindness, and each one affects vision in a unique way. For example, people with protanopia, a type of red-green color blindness, may see orange and green as yellow, and blue and purple might look the same. I think this is what my dad had, because he couldn't tell blue from purple. Color blindness is caused by abnormalities in the cone cells of the eye, which are responsible for detecting color. So depending on which type of cone cell is affected, and to what degree, people with color blindness will see colors differently. Have you ever heard that ants can lift 5,000 times their own weight? That's incredible, right? Well, unfortunately, as it turns out, that number is not entirely accurate. While ants are without a doubt the best weightlifters in the insect world, the truth is they can only lift 10 to 50 times their own weight. I mean, that's still pretty impressive. That's like a human lifting a car. So where did that 5,000 number come from? That's how much pressure their necks can withstand, not the weight they can actually carry, which still makes them pretty incredible no matter how we look at it. Your taste buds are on your tongue, right? Well, they're there too. While your tongue is definitely a taste bud hotspot, it's not the only place these flavor detectors are hiding. You've also got taste buds scattered throughout your mouth and throat. While I'm talking about the back of your throat, your epiglottis, that flap that stops food from going down the wrong pipe, and even the top of your esophagus. Some scientists even believe there are taste buds in your nasal cavity. We've all felt the sting of heartbreak. Whether it's the end of a relationship, the loss of a loved one, or a major life change, emotional pain can feel overwhelming. But it won't kill you, right? Wrong. While the saying, dying of a broken heart, seems like a dramatic exaggeration, there's a real medical condition called broken heart syndrome that can be triggered by intense emotional distress. This syndrome, also known as Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, mimics a heart attack with symptoms like chest pain and shortness of breath. It's caused by a surge of stress hormones, which can temporarily weaken the heart muscle. While most people recover fully, in rare cases, about 1% of the time, broken heart syndrome can be fatal. Are you under the impression that Coca-Cola was the OG of American soft drinks? Not even close. Coke might be an American icon, but it wasn't the first on the scene. That honor goes to Dr. Pepper. Born in a drugstore in Texas in 1885, Dr. Pepper in fact hit the markets a full year before Coke made its debut. So, maybe give the doc a little respect. Let's get back to making things explode. We can all agree there's nothing more exciting in an action movie than when the main character takes aim at a car and finds the perfect spot to hit it. That spot, of course, is the fuel tank, and it usually sends the car flying into the air with a fiery explosion. Sorry to burst your bubble, but this, too, isn't really possible. Gas tanks in most cars are incredibly well insulated, not specifically for bullets, but to protect against high-speed collisions. On top of that, even if a bullet did get through to the inside of the tank, a regular bullet doesn't carry enough force to actually set it alight. Has anyone told James Bond this? When checking your body temperature, the number you are looking for is around 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. If that number drops just a few degrees to below 95, call an ambulance. This is when the body can go into a state of hypothermia, slowly shutting down your organs, heart function, and soon leading to death. Contrary to a popular misunderstanding, though, hypothermia doesn't always happen when the temperature outside is cold. Things like excessive sweating or rain can also be enough to push your body into a hypothermic state. That's probably why mothers always tell their kids to stay out of the rain. This next one concerns the women out there. Did you ever learn that there was a link between how tight your bra was and breast cancer? This common myth has been circulating for decades, probably because developing cancer can almost seem random. But breathe easy. There isn't any evidence backing up this claim. One study analyzed 590 cases of breast cancer over a period of 4 years and found that there was no correlation between bra wearing, cup size, or what kind of underwear worn with cancer. So you're free to wear a bra as tight as you want. The internet is a weird and wonderful place. Search for an answer and you can stumble across a truly outlandish idea. For example, if you search WikiHow for how to keep your dark clothes from becoming light, one guide will tell you the secret is to use coffee. That's right, apparently adding an entire cup of brewed coffee is the magic ingredient for keeping those dark colors. However, a scientist has responded to this myth, claiming that it is wrong on two accounts. Firstly, in a normal rinse cycle, once all the water is pumped into the machine, the amount of coffee is so diluted that it basically has no effect at all. And secondly, if you're using a low water rinse, the coffee is actually more likely to stain your clothes rather than protect them. Okay, so according to the internet, coffee keeps clothes dark, but how about whitening them? For the second time, the answer isn't what you might think. Aspirin, the common pain medication used for moderate pains, is said to provide a spark of white to your clothes rather than bleach. And once again, science says, no. Acetylsalicylic acid, which is what aspirin is made up of, doesn't have any effect on clothes at all because it breaks down immediately when mixed with water. Contrary to popular belief, the social giant known as Meta, or, Facebook, was not the first social media platform to grace the World Wide Web. Nor was MySpace. That honor goes to a website you've probably never even heard of, 6 Degrees. Launched in 1996, 6 Degrees allowed its users to create profiles, connect with friends, and even join groups based on their shared interests. All the features we've grown used to on Facebook. Granted, 6 Degrees eventually faded into internet obscurity, but it paved the way for the social media Goliaths we love or love to hate today. It might be something your grandma swore by, but the truth is, it is completely outdated advice. Whether you're shivering with chills or burning up with a fever, your body is working hard to fight off those nasty germs. And what does a hardworking body need? Fuel. That's right, even if you don't have much of an appetite, eating nutritious foods is important to boost your immune system. So the next time you're under the weather, forget that old wives' tale. Feed that cold and that fever. A lot of people firmly believe in the power of a cleanse and love to tout the wonders of a trendy detox diet or juice cleanse. But the truth is, detox diets are just a fad. The human body is a self-cleaning marvel and comes equipped with a sophisticated system of organs, like your liver and kidneys, that are designed to filter out toxins and waste products. Those expensive juices and supplements aren't doing anything your body can't already handle on its own. In fact, some detox diets can even be harmful, depriving your body of essential nutrients and electrolytes. Have you ever heard that a base tan will protect your skin from the sun's harmful rays? That's a dangerous misconception. Although tanning salon visits may give you a temporary glow, they do little to protect you from future sunburns. In fact, a base tan is about as effective as wearing SPF 3 sunscreen, which is practically nothing. So why do people still believe in the base tan myth? It might be because a tan can temporarily make your skin less sensitive to sunburn, but that doesn't mean your skin isn't still being damaged by the sun's harmful UV rays. Wear sunscreen. Oh, that song takes me back. Look up the sunscreen song if you have no idea what I'm talking about. Class of 99, how did it begin? Was it Class of 99? I think it was Class of 99. Oh, it's been forever since I've heard. Baz Luhrmann. He did Moulin Rouge and Romeo plus Juliet. And Australia. I'm just rambling now. Are you afraid of catching something nasty from a public toilet seat? Well, you can finally relax. It's a common fear, but the truth is it's pretty much impossible to get sick from sitting on a toilet. Sure, there might be germs lurking on that porcelain throne, but most of them can't survive for long outside the human body. Even if a few hardy germs did stick around, they'd have to find a way into your body through a cut or other opening to even cause an infection. If you're not lucky enough to have your own washing machine, then usually your only option is a laundromat. The only problem is that they often have a reputation for being dirty. But can they really cause STDs? First of all, the strong heat and powerful detergents are usually enough to get rid of most germs. At worst, a public washing machine leaves you exposed to the tiny risk of catching a common flu. But as for STDs, no, there haven't been any cases recorded or evidence of transmission from a washing machine. Newborn mothers are, understandably, a little paranoid. Suddenly taking on the responsibility of another life is a task no one can prepare you for. And between 4 and 7 months old, when a baby's first teeth begin emerging from their gums, is an especially difficult time. One enduring warning is that teething causes babies to break out into a fever or cause more serious conditions like diarrhea. But don't worry, new parents, this is not true. Any of those symptoms are still serious, but they're related to other illnesses, not the tiny teeth coming down through their gums. Are you one of over 600 million people around the world who suffer from low back pain? If so, listen up. The most obvious remedy might seem to be to lay down, get rest, and avoid moving around too much. But in most cases, this can just make things worse. While it can be healthy to take a break from stressful activity, the solution is usually getting back to doing more activity, not less. That doesn't mean weight training or high-intensity exercise. However, moving around and stretching can be vital to recovery. There are videos floating around on TikTok where a new generation seems to be discovering the wonders of mirrors. Despite some counterintuitive physics, though, they aren't in fact windows to a different dimension. When you stand in front of a mirror and raise your right hand, the copy of you looking back seems to raise its left hand, as if it's turned around to face you, flipped 180 degrees. But what you're actually seeing are the photons bouncing off a smooth reflective surface and meeting your eyes again, reversed back to front. Your brain fills in the blanks and assumes that this is a 180-degree rotation. The name St. Bernard originates from a monastery in the Swiss Alps where this specific dog breed worked to rescue travelers in trouble. According to folklore, St. Bernards also transported brandy to mountain goers. That reputation can be traced back to a single painting where a St. Bernard was depicted with a barrel of whiskey around its neck. Unfortunately for climbers looking for a stiff drink to warm them up, this connection has no basis in reality. Monks working in that Swiss monastery have denied that whiskey was ever transported via canines, unless they're saving it all for themselves. Parents and teachers have been telling us for ages that reading in dim light will ruin our eyesight. But guess what? It is time for that myth to go. Yes, reading in low light can make your eyes feel tired and strained, and you might have a harder time focusing, but it won't cause any permanent damage to your peepers. If you start feeling that familiar eye strain, just take a break. Look away from the page for a bit or turn up the lights. Your eyes will bounce right back. No harm done. Okay, let's have a heart-to-heart about stretching. We've all heard that you should stretch before you sweat to prevent injuries. But guess what? That old school wisdom might not be so wise after all. As it turns out, stretching cold muscles before a workout doesn't really do much to prevent those pulled muscles or strains. It's like trying to stretch a frozen rubber band. You're more likely to snap it than make it more flexible. So, what is the secret to injury prevention? According to the experts, you only have to focus on a good warm-up. Think light cardio, like jogging in place or jumping jacks, or do whatever you need to do to get your blood flowing and your muscles warm. You know what? You've made it this far, so why not like, share, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell? It really helps the channel so we can keep making videos like this. Oh, and don't forget to check out our socials. While sweating it out can definitely feel good and might offer some benefits like improved circulation, there's no scientific evidence to support the claim that saunas actually remove toxins from your body. Your liver and kidneys are the organs responsible for filtering out wastes and toxins, and they do a pretty amazing job on their own, like I said before. In fact, some extreme sweat therapy practices can even be harmful, leading to dehydration and electrolyte imbalances. It's a common misconception that sunburns only happen on a hot, sunny day. But the truth is that harmful UV rays can sneak through the clouds and cause damage even when it's not scorching outside. In fact, it's quite easy for UV rays to get to you, even in the shade. So whether you're hitting the beach in the summer or skiing in the mountains in the winter, don't forget to protect your skin with sunscreen. When I was camping in Utah for 7 weeks, I was definitely told this. We're like, oh, it's snowing, we don't have to worry about it, but actually you can get sunburn in weird places, because you can get the sun reflecting off the snow, and you can get sunburn like up in here, which you never would think. So, it doesn't have to be completely sunny. Just wear sunscreen, and listen to the sunscreen song again. Have you ever wondered why clouds are white? It's easy to assume it's because they're reflecting the sun's light, right? But that's not the whole story. The secret to their fluffy white appearance actually lies in the size of the water droplets that make up those clouds. When those droplets are roughly the same size as the wavelength of white light, a phenomenon called Mie scattering occurs. This means the light gets scattered equally in all directions, making the cloud appear white to our eyes. They become gray or black when the droplets in those clouds have grown larger, to about the size of, raindrops. The bigger droplets scatter more light, preventing the bright white light from reaching our eyes. We also had a hard time believing this, but they're not. These Scottish national instruments' origins can actually be traced back to ancient Egypt. Those early bagpipes were very close to those we know today. However, the instrument was somewhat more disturbing. The bag was mostly composed of dog skin rather than that of sheep, and the tubes were created out of bone, not wood. The first recorded mention of the instrument in Egypt dates back to 400 BCE, when it was used by the pipers of Thebes. Later, the bagpipes became popular in ancient Rome, which is undoubtedly how they found their way to Europe. The Scottish then perfected the instrument and transformed it into what it is today. If you're a dog lover like I am, you'll be familiar with the huff, puff, and panting that comes after a good exercise session. But is that how dogs sweat? As it turns out, the answer is yes and no. Your dog's panting is a method of evaporative cooling. When your pooch gets hot, it'll open its jaws and breathe heavily. As the water evaporates from its nasal passages, tongue, and lungs, its core temperature drops. While dogs typically use panting to stay cool, they also sweat. But not in the way you may imagine. Dogs sweat through their paws. The sweat glands in their paws are known as merocrine glands. They also sweat through their apocrine glands throughout their body. However, that type of sweat doesn't help them cool down. We all know that the bald eagle symbolizes the United States. However, a pervasive myth keeps going around saying that Benjamin Franklin wanted it to be another bird, the turkey. As funny as that is, given our love for turkeys at Thanksgiving, it's simply not true. What Franklin did do was muse about the nobility of the eagle and comment that the design on the seal more closely resembled a turkey than an eagle, but those musings were kept private. The myth only gained real traction in 1962, when the New Yorker published an edition with the Great Seal reimagined as a turkey as their cover art. And the rest, as they say, is history. With food prices going through the roof, we all want to make the most of what we have and eliminate waste. Reducing food waste also helps to combat climate change. It's estimated that food waste alone accounts for more than 10% of worldwide greenhouse gas emissions. While fresh fish, meat, and poultry, as well as ready-to-eat meals and fresh pasta, are required to have a use-by date for food safety reasons, others, such as fresh fruit and vegetables, bread, and some cheeses, yogurts, and juices, don't. The truth is that the best before dates are sometimes quite conservative, and food can last considerably longer than stipulated with no appreciable loss in quality. The best way to identify if a food is safe to consume is to look at it, smell it, taste it, and trust your own judgment. A perfectly logical conclusion, seeing as how toilets are a common feature in the world's most unsanitary place and process. However, according to the University of Arizona's recent study, toilet seats are actually fairly clean. This is because they are regularly scrubbed, sprayed, and cleaned so as to rid them of all that disgusting butt essence. On the contrary, you're likely to find 10 times more germs on a surface used more and cleaned less regularly. Your cell phone screens. How disgusting. Coffee is not actually made from coffee beans at all. Coffee beans might look like beans, but they're really the pit or seed of the fruit that sprouts on the coffee trees. Coffee cherries are little bright red fruits that grow on coffee trees. And I did not know that. Did you? Let me know in the comments below. God, it smells so good. I want to dip these in chocolate and just eat them. A near-perfect sphere floating in the Milky Way. Meet Telios. This supernova remnant is so round it makes a basketball look lumpy. First discovered using Australia's ASKAP telescope, Telios stunned astronomers when they happened upon the perfect sphere shape. Most supernova remnants look like a tangled, twisted mess. But Telios? Flawless. So much so, it looks like the universe hired a fine art sculptor to create it. Even stranger is that it can only be detected using radio telescopes. It is completely invisible using an X-ray telescope or even a regular one. Scientists think it stayed in such pristine shape because it's located far from the crowded galactic plane, so it's never crashed into anything. Telios is basically that one friend who avoids all the drama and then looks amazing because of it. Have you ever sat back and thought about how weird Antarctica is? It's a frozen plain that hosts a variety of life, but is also considered uninhabitable. And what's weirder is that it's sending radio signals up through the Earth like some kind of planetary walkie-talkie. Yeah, I said what I said. The Antarctic Impulsive Transient Antenna, or ANITA, since even scientists hate typing long names, detected radio pulses shooting upward at steep angles. They apparently travel through thousands of miles of solid rock and casually defy the laws of physics. What's causing all this? Well, no one really knows. Scientists initially thought it was neutrinos, but that theory was ruled out pretty quickly. They also considered whether or not this was all brand new physics or caused by unknown particles, but neither of these hypotheses can fully account for what's going on. Nevertheless, these pulses do exist and are traveling through solid rock. They absolutely shouldn't, and we may never find out why it's happening. In September 2024, scientists made an ocean discovery that changed geology textbooks. A 250 million-year-old piece of seafloor beneath the Pacific Ocean. It was just casually chilling there, making everything we thought we knew about tectonic plates look questionable. Researchers used seismic imaging beneath the East Pacific Rise to discover this fossilized chunk of ancient seabed in the mantle transition zone. But that's not the wildest part. It should have been gobbled up by the Earth's interior during the subduction millions of years ago, but it got stuck. This suggests that not all oceanic slabs get fully consumed when they dive beneath tectonic plates, like we thought. As it turns out, some get trapped and preserved, and it's forcing researchers to reconsider how subduction even works. So yeah, Earth was hiding a 250 million year old secret in its basement this whole time. Classic. Freshwater scarcity is a serious global issue right now, but it may not be forever. In 2019, scientists discovered something that may just solve this issue. Massive hidden freshwater reservoirs hiding beneath the ocean floor. Yes, fresh water in the ocean. Nature sure does love being a tricky little trickster. This was discovered using electromagnetic imaging by researchers, and they found it stretches from the seabed, starting in New Jersey, and spans all the way to Maine. That is a huge body of water, and they decided it couldn't go to waste. So, in summer 2025, scientists drilled directly into it for the very first time and confirmed it was real. However, there was a catch. We don't know how to use the water down there yet. Accessing the aquifer safely and sustainably requires a massive amount of research, development, and community engagement to figure out the extraction methods. We want the water, but we don't want to damage the ecosystem or deplete any resources while doing it. We can't just tap it and hope for the best. For this next fact, we're heading into space to look at Earth's evil twin, Venus. This planet should absolutely be one of the most inhospitable places in the entire solar system. It has a crushing atmospheric pressure and temperatures that reach above 800 degrees Fahrenheit. However, despite all of this, scientists believe they have detected chemical signatures that should not exist. First, the atmosphere contains gases like phosphine and hydrogen that are not thermodynamically compatible. And on top of that, there's an unidentified substance that absorbs UV light that researchers can't explain. They've also found traces of ammonia that could neutralize the planet's deadly acidic clouds. Every natural explanation we can think of, such as Venus's active volcanoes, lightning strikes, and weird chemistry, fails to account for what scientists are observing. Could it be that there is microbial life existing in Venus's cloud layers? You think Venus is weird? Just wait until I tell you all about Saturn. This planet already has hexagonal storms and rings made of ice, but the James Webb Space Telescope spotted something even stranger on November 29, 2024. These brand new features left scientists completely stumped. There are mysterious dark beads floating in Saturn's ionosphere that no one can explain. And that's not all. Deeper in the planet's stratosphere, the telescope found a lopsided four-arm pattern. Both phenomena sit at different atmospheric levels, which makes figuring out these mysteries even more complicated. For now, scientists believe the structures might be connected to Saturn's famous hexagonal polar storm. Oh, you haven't heard of it? Well, it's a bizarre six-sided weather pattern that's spinning at Saturn's North Pole and has been for decades. If researchers are right, Saturn's atmosphere is vertically connected in ways we've never understood before. If you've been secretly planning on finding the first available Twinkie stash if the zombie apocalypse hits, well, I've got bad news for you. Although they have a reputation for lasting forever, they, like any food containing moisture, begin to spoil quite fast, even while still safely tucked away, wrapped in plastic, and boxed in a container. In fact, according to Business Insider, they only last about 25 days. Ooh, 25. Maybe Twinkie the Kid should be the new List 25 mascot. I'm not sure if this is going to make you feel better or worse, but you know what? Let's just meet the myth halfway. Sharks have an amazing sense of smell. In fact, they can detect as little as a drop at a concentration of 1 part per 10 billion, or roughly a pinpoint size of droplet in a pool more or less the size of an Olympic swimming pool. That's, at best, a couple of football fields, certainly not a mile. But I still wouldn't take any chances going into the water with a paper cut. I'm so sorry for doing this to you so soon after the Scottish Bagpipes entry, but the saint so strongly related to Irish pride and St. Patrick's Day wasn't even from Ireland. I'm probably more Irish than him, and I just found that out in our one video. According to Catholic Online, St. Patrick was born in Roman Britain. As a child, he was kidnapped by Irish pirates and brought to the country to look after sheep. He became a missionary and is credited with bringing Christianity to parts of Ireland. As such, St. Patrick's Day was initially a religious holiday, only becoming the cheeky pint-in-hand festival celebrated across Ireland and other parts of the world today in the 1800s. Like so many kids growing up, I learned about Paul Revere's Midnight Ride and the instructions about the lanterns in the old church to signal the strategy behind the British invasion. 1 if by land, 2 if by sea. But who was the man behind the signals? Well, it wasn't Paul Revere. Although the Newman and Pulling families have argued over the name of the ultimate hero for the past 200 years, many historians have split the difference, pointing out that both men climbed the stairs and hung the lanterns. But why don't we know for certain? According to Concord Museum curator David Wood, it's because no one wanted the credit. Because Newman and Pulling were still British subjects, hanging the lanterns amounted to treason. According to the online science journal sciencenews.org, the number of mountains beneath our oceans has officially doubled. Satellites have discovered nearly 20,000 previously unknown seamounts, according to scientists. Like land-based mountains, underwater mountains are measured from their base to their peak. This brings us to another doozy. Mount Everest is in fact not the tallest mountain on Earth. Mauna Kea, a dormant volcano off the coast of Hawaii, holds that honor. To put their height difference into perspective, imagine seeing Mauna Kea out on the water. Mount Everest's summit is 29,035 feet above sea level, and Mauna Kea's total height is 33,500 feet. That makes it almost a mile higher than Everest. Space got even weirder in July 2025 when astronomers spotted something unusual shooting through our solar system. They spotted a comet they named 3I Atlas, and what makes it wild is that it didn't come from inside our solar system. This is only the third known interstellar object that we've caught passing through our cosmic neighborhood. The comet is up to 12 miles in diameter and is barreling through the skies near the Milky Way's bar at a mind-boggling 152,000 miles an hour. It's said to have enough momentum to shoot right through our cosmic neighborhood without slowing down. On October 23, 2025, it was scheduled to make its closest approach to our sun before leaving our solar system forever. But wait, it gets wilder. Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb proposed using the James Webb Space Telescope to search for signs of non-gravitational acceleration. And by that, we mean he's looking for evidence of artificial propulsion. Aliens. He's looking to see if this thing is hosting alien technology. I mean, can you imagine what will happen if he's right? For number 18, we're heading over to Chile to talk about a super creepy event that happened back in January 2025. A wildlife camera run by the University of Magallanes snapped 3 photos over 2 seconds at 12:22 a.m. that had jaws on the floor. The snaps showed intense lights in the distance that seemed to approach, hover, and then disappear. Completely just disappear. Was this near a road or the obvious light source? No, of course not. That would be too easy to explain. These cameras are set up in a secluded meadow in the middle of nowhere with a flat view of the horizon. They were there as a part of a project called Public Baseline to monitor wildlife using 65 camera traps scattered throughout continental Patagonia and Tierra del Fuego. In the time since the project began in November 2023, the cameras have snapped roughly 365,000 images and videos. Out of them, only these 3 pics showed anything out of the ordinary. There were no other lights, orbs, or glowing objects anywhere else, and no one can explain what they are. Was it a drone? Did the camera miss everything but the lights? Maybe, but that seems rather unlikely considering the location. Aliens? Well, sure, maybe. Ghost orbs? Possibly. We'll never know, unless it happens again in a way we can research. In 2024, astronomers using the Atacama Large Millimeter/Submillimeter Array, ALMA, made another stunning discovery when they spotted the comet C-2014 UN-271, now known as Bernardinelli-Bernstein. Yes, that is a mouthful. Thank you for asking. And scientists know that, so they just call it BB, because no one is saying all that multiple times a day. Anyway, the massive comet is from the Oort cloud and was hanging out about 16.6 astronomical units from the sun when scientists realized it had jets of carbon monoxide gas erupting from its core. That's super weird, considering comets from the Oort cloud are basically frozen time capsules. This one was different, and its explosive insides were confusing, to say the least. Seeing this comet actively spew gas gave entirely different clues about the early days of our solar system and what it may have looked like billions of years ago. You'd think we'd have the rock we live on figured out by now, but Nope. Every single day, scientists discover more and more nonsensical things about Earth. And this is one of the strangest. Deep beneath our feet, there are massive structures in the mantle that scientists can't fully explain called large, low shear velocity provinces, or LLSVPs, because geologists aren't about to trip themselves up over that when they can use an acronym instead. LLSVPs are enormous, dense blobs that are entirely different from any of the surrounding mantle rock. They create unexpected density contrasts that don't match up with what we know, and they also mess with seismic waves in very odd ways. Even stranger, though, is that they seem to trap stuck slabs of subducting oceanic crust and stop them from sinking further. Scientists' best guess is that these structures are remnants of ancient tectonic events billions of years ago. But the problem with that theory is that their existence alone changes everything we thought we knew about how planets evolve. We're literally standing on top of mystery so deep that they're rewriting geology textbooks every single year. Venus has mysterious dark particles floating in its upper clouds that scientists can't seem to get a full grasp on. The mystery runs so deep that they didn't even name the particles. They just dubbed them unknown absorbers. What's super odd is that these particles absorb ultraviolet light, which affects Venus's energy budget and actually influences the planet's weather patterns. How? Why? Well, we don't really know. It's a huge deal and we can't figure it out. Nothing we can think of perfectly matches what we're observing. Making this even weirder is that scientists haven't ruled out whether these particles are of biological origin. Yeah, you heard me right. These mystery particles may somehow be alive. Can we prove it? No. Can we disprove it? Nope. For now, Venus gets to keep this secret while we sit here on Earth completely baffled by the whole thing. The concept that stained glass windows in ancient churches were thicker at the bottom due to the slow flow of glass has finally been debunked. Contrary to popular belief, the increased thickness at the base came from the production process, not any liquid-like glass movements. However, despite this knowledge, the myth persists, fueled by the notion that glass, as a supercooled viscous substance, retains the properties of a flowing liquid. Glass, however, undergoes vitrification during cooling, maintaining a solid-like state without crystallization. To eliminate the myth once and for all, researchers examined a 20-million-year-old blob of preserved amber, an organic polymer similar to glass in its dynamics. Through calorimetric and stress relaxation tests, they proved that the amber did not exhibit any diverging relaxation times, conclusively debunking the idea of glass as a flowing substance. Will this finally get rid of the myth? Well, let's wait and see. Knowledge is power, after all. If you photograph a chimp next to any of us, it wouldn't be strange to assume that the chimp is much hairier. However, that is not the case. Like other primates, humans have between 2 and 5 million hair follicles spread across their bodies. However, our hair is less coarse and noticeable. You see, unlike apes, humans have two types of hair, terminal and vellus. Terminal hair can be found on our heads, armpits, and pubic areas, whereas vellus hair can be found, well, everywhere else. Vellus hair is finer, shorter, and lighter in texture than terminal hair, and it's not connected to any glands beneath the skin. Exactly why we have these differences remains a mystery. Having a phone end up in water has probably happened to all of us, and if it hasn't happened to you, you know someone it's happened to. Annoyingly, most of us have to get rid of the device after something wet happens. Unfortunately, rice is not the answer. Trust me, it will not help your phone to dry out faster or more effectively. In fact, it'll only cause more damage down the line as the dust and starch will get into the ports, blocking it. The best idea is to put the phone in a container along with a few silica gel packets. They absorb moisture more effectively than rice. Allow at least 48 hours for the device to dry out completely before switching it on again. And if you've got any other tips, please let us know in the comments. We've all watched the footage of the astronauts floating around the ISS, or International Space Station, so it's easy to believe that there's no gravity up there. However, gravity exists everywhere in the universe. Without it, everything would fall apart and cease to exist. The astronauts appear weightless because both the space station and the crew are constantly falling toward Earth. Because all objects of the same mass drop at the same speed, the space station and the crew members fall simultaneously, giving the appearance of zero gravity. Fortunately, even if they continue to fall, they are unlikely to reach the Earth because the space station is flying at approximately 17,150 miles or 27,600 kilometers per hour, keeping both it and the occupants in orbit. Actually, it's more like 1 million. The ones we can clearly see, red, yellow, orange, green, indigo, blue, and violet, Roijibiv, all fall into what is known as the visible spectrum. The corals, pinks, browns, aquas, and so forth are all there. They're just invisible to the naked eye. We also think of rainbows in an arc form, but they're actually complete circles. We don't see the entire circle because we can only observe the light reflected over the horizon from our earthly vantage point. So there's no gold at the end of the rainbow. I'm sorry. Just dunking on the Irish today. It's okay, I'm very, very Irish myself. The universe seems to have an accounting problem, especially if you look into the calculations from the Big Bang. For all intents and purposes, we should have way more ordinary matter like stars, planets, and gas. But it seems a significant chunk of the universe is just missing. This is called the missing baryon problem, and it's been driving cosmologists crazy for years. The cosmic background and Big Bang nucleosynthesis tell us how much baryonic matter should exist, but the numbers of visible stars, galaxies, and gas clouds do not add up. Not even close. Where did the missing pieces go? Well, it turns out most of the missing matter isn't actually missing. It's just extremely hard to detect. It's been heated and ionized into a diffuse state called warm, hot intergalactic medium that floats between galaxies. It's not hiding, but it's really annoying to find without having to use X-rays and radio burst studies to track it down. Have you ever flipped through old photos from 100 years ago and noticed something in the sky that's just gone? Or noticed something that wasn't there before but suddenly is? That's what the VASCO project is investigating, and it is a wild ride. VASCO stands for Vanishing and Appearing Sources During a Century of Observations. This project is comparing old photographic plates from historic sky surveys with modern digital ones and seeing what isn't quite matching up. When stars or other objects disappear, or appear, they investigate. Sometimes these are explainable events, like a star temporarily brightening before fading. But other times, scientists have no idea what they're seeing. The project is essentially searching for unique astrophysical phenomena and, yes, the potential for astroengineering, aka alien structures or technology. Astronomers are playing cosmic detectives using centuries-old images and new observations to track our ever-changing universe. Everyone knows Mars is red. Being the red planet is Mars's whole shtick. But did you know that for years, scientists assumed it was red because of iron oxide from the oxidation of the iron-rich rocks? Sure you did. But do you know why that's wrong? Let me explain. Research from February 2025 threw a wrench in that explanation. As it turns out, the primary cause of Mars's red color is probably from a hydrated mineral called ferrihydrite. That is a huge discovery because ferrihydrite forms in the presence of water. Lots and lots of water. This suggests that Mars might have a much more water-rich past than we previously believed. We've long assumed that Mars lost all its water during its early history. However, if ferrihydrite is responsible for the planet's coloring, this just got much more complicated. We clearly don't know as much as we thought we did. In June 2025, filmmaker Jacob Harrell and the Ocean X team were 375 meters deep in the Indian Ocean when they discovered an extremely rare phenomenon called a flashback. What is this? Let me tell you all about it. Normally, researchers turn off their lights to catch sightings of bioluminescence in the deep ocean. However, Harrell's team did the opposite. They blasted the area with strong artificial lights, and it triggered a strange, subdued light response from the organisms. This behavior absolutely does not match anything scientists know about bioluminescent creatures. So, what caused it? Nobody knows. Best guesses jump between a defense mechanism or communication between organisms, but we don't really have any idea. Scientists have spent the past few months trying to figure out exactly what went on down there and how it changes the things we do know about these glowing sea monsters. In May 2016, NASA satellites captured a strange occurrence. They spotted dark spiral voids in the clouds above Heard Island near Antarctica. No, they aren't alien portals. They are called Von Karman vortices, and they are caused by wind hitting an obstacle. On Heard Island, this happens when strong winds slam into Mawson Peak, an active volcano. The airflow gets disrupted, and alternating spiral patterns are created in the opposite direction. The dark voids are clear spots where the vortex centers push thick clouds aside and form a chain of circles that grow to roughly 8 miles wide. What makes this even more stunning is that it bends midway through because of the region's westerly winds. Most Von Karman vortices create wispy, straight trails, but these ones are contorted and dramatic. Who knew wind could act weird enough that it had NASA scientists scratching their heads for a hot minute?
It's a famous Hollywood staple. Someone gets stuck in quicksand and disappears under the sand. Fortunately, the truth is far gentler. People can only partially sink into this type of soil, and laboratory simulations have confirmed this little-known fact. Quicksand is nothing more than ordinary sand that's been saturated with water to the point where the friction between the sand particles has been reduced, rendering them incapable of supporting any weight. The mixture is most commonly seen near the deltas of large rivers. It can also form when an earthquake causes water to be released from the subsurface reservoirs. The greatest risk of quicksand lies in the fact that you can get trapped in it right when the high tide comes in. That would be a horrible way to go. But yeah, no, Hollywood made it seem like quicksand was going to be just a constant worry in our adult lives. Because it's known as the Spanish flu, many people believe it originated in Spain. However, nobody knows where the flu came from, though it definitely wasn't from Spain. In fact, Spain had fewer cases than many other countries. It only became known as the Spanish flu since Spain was one of the first, if not the first, to widely report on it. Because they were neutral during World War I, and had their own thing going on, their press was more unrestrained than other countries. Countries involved in the war, such as the UK, the US, and Russia, suppressed knowledge of the flu to a minimum to maintain morale. It's a classic case of blaming the messenger, as people attributed the illness to Spain, even though it only reported it honestly. According to this popular myth, the game of baseball was invented in 1839 in a cow pasture near Cooperstown, New York by a man called Abner Doubleday. The story gained credibility in 1905 when a committee was appointed to investigate the game's origins and decided to go with the testimony of one man. However, the man's credibility was later questioned. Jeff Idelson, the former president of the US Baseball Hall of Fame, confirmed that the game was never invented in just one place. As far as baseball history is concerned, the first rules were officially authored by Alexander Joy Cartwright, who devised them for none other than the Knickerbockers Baseball Club. However, we know the best club in history is the Tampa Bay Rays. #Rays up. God, this was a disappointing season. 13-0 just to get eliminated in the first round. Oh man, swept in the first round. Doesn't matter, still a Rays fan. #Rays up. We really do hope that you only tried this out a few times as a kid. Though it might not look like it, earthworms have two distinct heads and tails. The head of the worm is always positioned on the end closest to the swelling band that encircles the animal, known as the citellum. When an earthworm is split in half, it doesn't grow into two new worms. However, if the animal is sliced behind the citellum, the head may survive and regrow its tail. The worm's original tail will not be able to produce a new head and will die off. There is another worm, however, that puts the earthworm's regenerating abilities to shame. The planarian flatworm belongs to a different phylum than earthworms and can rebuild its complete body from slivers just a fraction of its original size. God, can you imagine if we did that? Oh, hangnails would be a nightmare. Well, if not water, what do they store in their humps? And the answer is fat. The fat accumulated in camel humps serves as an energy reserve. Water is stored primarily in their bloodstream, making them excellent at avoiding dehydration. Camels can go up to 7 days without drinking, but when they do, they go all out, up to 225 liters or 50 gallons at a time, enough to keep a family of four sated on the driest summer afternoons. We're heading to Taos, New Mexico for number 9. The folks of this town have been dealing with a maddening mystery since 1990, a persistent, low-frequency hum that only some people can hear. And when I say persistent, I mean that it truly never stops. Around 2% of residents can hear this sound, which is described as anything from an idling diesel engine to a faint droning buzz. And it's worse at night, it's more noticeable indoors, and covering your ears doesn't make it stop or make it any better. Because of this, people constantly report headaches, nausea, and fatigue from putting up with it. In 1993, the residents were fed up and headed to Congress to beg for help. This led to a major study by Los Alamos National Laboratory, Sandia National Laboratories, and the University of New Mexico. Equipment was brought in to check out what was going on. They used sophisticated acoustic, seismic, and electromagnetic monitoring, but it got them nowhere. They didn't find any source or any explanation. Theories range from industrial equipment and inner ear phenomena, but nothing actually fully explains why only certain people hear the sound, or what the sound even is. It remains one of science's strangest unsolved mysteries. European eels aren't just terrifying-looking creatures. They're mysterious enough to keep scientists up at night, and not just because of their looks. These guys have been pulling off nature's greatest disappearing act for millions of years, and researchers have only just begun cracking the case. These slippery little beasts spend nearly their whole lives in European rivers and coastal waters, except when it's time to reproduce. When they get that call, they vanish into the Atlantic Ocean and head to the Sargasso Sea. Scientists use satellite tracking to confirm that the eels make it safely over thousands of miles of migration. That was great to see. What they didn't see, however, was the eels spawning there. Not once. Not ever. We've never actually witnessed the early larval stages in the wild either. And that's not even the wildest part. The larvae that we never witnessed somehow navigate back across the Atlantic until they reach the European coast like it's second nature. Scientists have no idea how this instinctively keeps happening the way it does. It's seamless when it shouldn't be, especially for baby eels. How do they know where to go? Why does it travel so far? Why don't we ever see the spawning happen? There are so many unanswered questions that hopefully will be answered in our lifetime. Climate scientists have successfully predicted global temperatures for decades. NASA's own Gavin Schmidt runs the Goddard Institute for Space Studies and has been the main man on this side of science since 2016. But then, 2023 happened, and it all completely fell apart. So, what happened? In June 2023, Earth's temperature shattered records by margins no one had ever seen before. The heat kept breaking records for 15 consecutive months, making 2023 and 2024 the hottest years ever recorded. What's truly odd is that the extreme heat arrived before El Niño peaked, which contradicts everything scientists understand about how the climate operates. The planet warmed an extra 0.2 degrees Celsius, and the current models don't and can't account for the change. Theories of cloud patterns, shipping fuel regulations, and even weakening carbon sinks have been thrown around, but nothing fully explains what's happening or how. Researchers are still trying to figure it all out, and it's changing the way we look at weather patterns and the climate system on our humble planet. Another baffling NASA discovery came in 2024 thanks to the Fermi Gamma Ray Space Telescope. It picked up a powerful gamma ray dipole signal coming from outside our galaxy, and there's no way of knowing what's causing it. This particular signal is hanging out in the southern sky, nowhere near the cosmic microwave background dipole where researchers expect to find this kind of thing. And it's roughly 10 times stronger than what scientists would predict based on our solar system's motion through space. This is a massive discrepancy. What's even more puzzling is that this gamma ray dipole is similar in both direction and magnitude to an unexplained ultra-high energy cosmic dipole that other observatories previously detected. Two separate phenomena pointing in the same direction, sharing similarities, but they don't seem to be connected at all. Curiouser and curiouser.
Snakes are able to hear, but they do so less through external ears, which they obviously lack, and instead through low-frequency vibrations they pick up through their jawbones. Despite appearances, snakes are unfortunately deaf to regular airborne sounds, like music. So, despite the common misconception of snake charmers lulling their snakes through their music, this lulling is done through the snake charmer's movements and other cues, such as the charmer's swaying motion, drawing the snake's attention to the moving object rather than the funky tune. But dolphins, often viewed as our friendly ocean guardians, are vicious killers. Recent scientific discoveries have highlighted some of their more disturbing behaviors. For instance, they've been found to torture baby porpoises and have even taken to harming their own kind.
The experts are baffled, and some have suggested there might be a possible sexual motive behind these actions. It could also hint at a growing intelligence in dolphins, as disturbing as it might be, only a few animals derive pleasure from killing, a trait shared perhaps only with humans. Most of what we're taught here in the US about Thanksgiving as children is probably wrong, but that's because the truth might put us off Thanksgiving forever. Thanksgiving was far more than just a harvest celebration between the Wampanoag Indians and the colonists. More settlers had arrived in the New World carrying a plague that took over 50% of the original population. As a result, there was a land dispute and strained ties between the two cultures. Even though there was a 3-day feast, it's unclear whether the Wampanoags were invited or simply turned up. Several narratives and theories about Thanksgiving's origins exist, but none are pleasant. Initially, one might be confused about hard and soft water's existence. I mean, water's water, isn't it? And it turns out there's a clear difference between the two. Hard water is generally your regular run-of-the-mill water with no sodium and all its natural minerals intact, whereas soft water is water that has all its minerals removed and includes sodium. Experts agree that hard water is the healthier choice between the two, as hard water includes benefits such as better heart function, blood sugar regulation, better digestion, and even cancer prevention. As it turns out, hard results are better than soft processed promises. Have you heard that all clouds eventually make rain? Well, sorry, but no. While it's true that all rain comes from clouds, not every cloud can make rain. Those fluffy cumulus clouds you see on sunny days, for instance, might look like they're packing a punch, but they're usually just passing through without causing a single drop. And those wispy cirrus clouds high in the sky, they're made of ice crystals and are too thin to produce proper rain. So, while all rain comes from clouds, not all clouds are created equal. It all boils down to the type of cloud, its altitude, and the atmospheric conditions. If you've ever worried that tomatoes might increase your risk of cancer, well, it's time to breathe a sigh of relief. The juicy red fruit is not your enemy. In fact, it might just be your best ally in the fight against cancer. Research has consistently shown that tomatoes and tomato-based products are linked to a lower risk of various types of cancer. The key ingredient? Lycopene, a powerful antioxidant found in abundance in tomatoes. This bright red compound has been shown to protect cells from damage, reduce inflammation, and even slow the growth of cancer cells. Celery. The crunchy, low-calorie snack is often hailed as a diet miracle. But is it really a negative calorie food, meaning that you burn more calories eating it than it actually contains? While celery is undeniably a low-calorie veggie, it is not calorie-free. It does take some energy to digest, but the amount of calories you burn chewing and digesting a stick of celery is far less than the calories it provides. So while celery is a healthy and hydrating snack, it's not going to magically melt away calories. Also, it's gross. It's stringy. Oh, I do not like celery. Ants on a log. I don't even like that. What a waste of peanut butter. Just give me the peanut butter. I'll take the raisins. I like raisins. Tornadoes are not just a tornado alley phenomenon. While the Midwest and Southern Plains are famous for their twisters, it's a common misconception that these destructive storms are limited to that region. The truth is that tornadoes can strike anywhere in the United States, from the sunny shores of here in Florida to the snowy peaks of the Rockies. In fact, some states outside of Tornado Alley, like Florida, even see a higher frequency of tornadoes than some states within the alley. And it doesn't stop there. Tornadoes have even been reported on just about every continent except Antarctica, so they truly are a global phenomenon. And fun fact, they can sometimes come with hurricanes, so here in Florida, we get both. Hooray! We're diving into intense blasts of radio waves that last just milliseconds, called fast radio bursts. We know what they are, but we don't fully understand what causes them, especially after astronomers discovered one in 2024 that broke all the rules scientists thought they knew. FRB 2024-0209A was found roughly 130,000 light-years away from the center of its host galaxy. This was in a region where stars aren't forming, which is weird because these bursts normally show up in areas with tons of young stars and stellar activity. Why did this one decide to hang out in a quiet area? The current belief is that this burst might come from a magnetar that formed when neutron stars or white dwarfs merged. Another hypothesis is that it's from a white dwarf going through accretion-induced collapse. Both these possibilities are rare and unusual, and neither quite matches up. It still remains a mystery. Did you know that Alaska got a brand new island? Oh yeah. In August 2025, Alaska officially gained a little landmass after decades of glacial retreat. This is all on the small mountain called Prow Knob. It was under the Alsek Glacier for all of history until finally emerging and becoming a fully formed island that is completely surrounded by water. NASA satellite images showed the transformation happening from 1984 to 2025. Over those 41 years, the Alsek Glacier retreated more than 5 kilometers, which slowly exposed the mountain beneath it. Prow Knob is now completely free from ice and surrounded by lake water on all sides. It's a tiny 2-square-mile island, but an island nonetheless. Will this be the last time we witness such a world-altering event? Most likely not. With rising temperatures, this may just be the start of a changing world that will expose more and more of what's under the water as time goes on. Alaska isn't the only place hiding secrets beneath the surface. Australia has been hiding one for over 1 billion years. Scientists recently uncovered evidence of an ancient asteroid impact that was buried under layers of rock and sediment this entire time. The crater is about the same size as Mexico's Chicxulub crater, which is thought to have wiped out the dinosaurs. But unlike that one, this crater was completely buried over time. Tectonic plates shifted, sediment piled up, and erosion covered it until it disappeared from view entirely. We only found it using geological surveys that discovered circular patterns in the Earth's crust. The asteroid that created this crater was several miles wide, and when it hit, it released enough energy to reshape the entire continent. Scientists believe the impact also triggered volcanic eruptions, destroyed ecosystems, and could have affected how the ancient supercontinents were formed. Between roughly 1050 and 700 BC, something strange happened to our planet's magnetic field in the Levant region that still has scientists talking about it today. And, really weird. Researchers discovered what they're calling the Levantine Iron Age anomaly, or LIAA. This baffling event happened when the Earth's magnetic field suddenly spiked to nearly double its strength in that specific area. And it wasn't just stronger. It also changed directions and intensity in a rapid way that doesn't make any sense. How do we even know about this now? Ancient pottery and bricks tell the story. When clay gets baked, it locks in a record of the magnetic field during that moment, like a tiny time capsule. By studying ancient pottery through a system called archaeomagnetism, we've learned about this wacky occurrence that has scientists scratching their heads. No one knows why it happened or the impact of the Levantine Iron Age anomaly. We just know that it did occur, and humanity came out the other side unscathed. Did you know that scientists at the University of Exeter accidentally discovered that comb jellies can do something truly wild when they get hurt? No, they don't regenerate. This is so much cooler. They fuse to become a single organism. Researchers were studying a species called Nemiopsis leidiae when they noticed that injured comb jellies weren't just healing, they were becoming one with other injured jellies nearby. Once fused, they shared literally everything. They fuse their nervous systems, their digestive tracts, and even share all their food. They become fully integrated, and once they do, they don't break apart, ever. This is a permanent solution. This definitely wasn't something scientists were looking for, but this accidental discovery took deep-sea research to a whole new level. For a brief period in the 1970s and 80s, a craze swept the children of America, a type of candy called Pop Rocks that fizzled and crackled in the mouth. Back then, the myth was that if you swallowed a bunch of Pop Rocks and then drank a fizzy soda, it would be enough to make your insides explode. Given how Mentos react to Diet Coke, it isn't actually such a crazy idea. However, the rumor has been put to rest by the team at Mythbusters, who showed that after touching any kind of liquid, Pop Rocks simply fizzle out, dissolving rather than exploding. Speaking of candy, where do those Lifesavers candies get their name from? According to one study, the hole in the middle is a safety mechanism to stop anyone from choking on them. That's not such a bad idea when you learn that over 27% of non-fatal choking incidents for children are caused by candy. However, it doesn't take much thinking to realize that making a hole in the middle isn't exactly the most effective way to bring that number down. The real reason was originally to stand out from the competition. And when production began, the inventor thought they looked similar to the life preservers that you throw out to someone drowning in the ocean, hence the name Lifesavers. More than anything, tumbleweeds are associated with the wild, wild west of the United States. But if you do a little digging, you'll learn that they aren't actually native to the American landscape. Their name actually might give that away, because they're known as Russian thistles, and come from Eurasia. They invaded America when people and agricultural products started moving to the New World in the 19th century. Since then, the species has damaged agriculture, injured animals, and played havoc on vegetation. But at least they provide some comic moments in films. Over the past few decades, though, as research has shown how big the long-term effects of a baby's first few years are, new parents can be cautious not to give them too much attention. According to one psychologist, though, there is no real concern. The main task of the first few months and years of a tiny human is to grapple with a new reality, learn who and what to trust, all while feeling protected. That means that there is no limit to how much attention a baby should get, and no such thing as spoiling them. Who wrote this study, a baby? With beautiful beaches, good weather all year long, and some of the most stunning parks in the country, California is a state like no other. And with the 5th largest economy in the world, for some Californians, breaking away from the US doesn't sound like such a bad idea. Well, once upon a time, back in the 16th century, California was actually depicted in maps as an island, tracing back to one map that was misdrawn by one Dutch geographer named Cornelis van Witvliet. It wasn't until more than a century later that the map was finally corrected. Sadly for proud Californians, it's not really an island. I guess if you love clouds, you're loving this list. And it's easy to believe that clouds are weightless, but that's actually a misconception. Clouds are made up of tiny water droplets or ice crystals, and those tiny particles add up. A typical cumulus cloud can weigh hundreds of thousands of tons, equivalent to the weight of over 100 elephants. So, how do these massive clouds stay afloat? It all comes down to density. While clouds are heavy, the air they displace is even heavier. This means that a cloud, despite its weight, is still less dense than the surrounding air, allowing it to float high above us. 'Cause she's so high, high above me. Xmas is everywhere during the holidays, and while some folks might think it's disrespectful to Christ, the real story behind it is actually pretty amazing. Believe it or not, that X isn't some modern attempt to make the holidays less religious. It's actually a nod to the ancient Greek word for Christ, Christos, which actually starts with the letter chi. The X is just a shorthand way of representing that letter. So the next time you see Xmas on a card or in a store window, don't get your tinsel in a tangle. It's not a sign of disrespect, but a nod to the roots of Christmas itself. I'm gonna start spelling Hanukkah with an X. I mean, we Hanukkah anyway, so there are multiple spellings of Hanukkah, which is fun. Have you ever munched on a Hydrox cookie and thought it was just a knockoff Oreo? Well, you've been duped. The truth is, Hydrox was the original chocolate sandwich cookie, hitting the shelves in 1908, a full 4 years before Oreos even existed. Oreo's rise as the Cookie King is all due to the power of marketing and branding. Oreos simply outplayed Hydrox in the popularity contest, leading many to mistakenly believe that Hydrox was the copycat. The word gringo is actually way older than that and popped up in a Spanish dictionary as early as 1787. So, where did it come from? The leading theory is that it evolved from the Spanish word grigo, which means Greek. Spanish speakers used it in the same way as we say, it's all Greek to me, indicating something was difficult to understand or unintelligible. Over time, grigo became gringo, and it started being used to refer to any foreigner who spoke a language the locals didn't understand. Pretty cool, right? Irregardless, the word is frequently criticized by grammar purists, but guess what? It's actually a real word. And yes, it might sound a little redundant, but dictionaries recognize it as a legitimate word, meaning without regard to, or despite the circumstances. So why all the hate? That's probably because ear usually means not, so irregardless means not regardless, but hey, that's just the nature of language. It evolves, and every so often words just stick around, even if they don't make sense. The bottom line, irregardless of the grammar police's opinions, it's a real word. But don't use it in your next term paper, just in case. There's a common idea that the US is a Christian nation, and that the founding fathers all shared that faith. But that's not quite true. Some of them were what's called theistic rationalists, meaning they believed in some kind of God, but they didn't belong to any particular religion. This gave them and their ideas a certain shape, like the principle of mutual respect for all different faiths. For the most part, though, the separation between church and state in the Constitution means that the government has to be neutral about religion. In most depictions of the medieval era, there's a lot of beer drinking in taverns and pubs. The idea is that, in many ways, alcohol was more commonly drunk than water. Some of that is backed by history. With the fall of the Roman Empire, much of the European infrastructure suddenly was left unmanaged, meaning that clean water became more difficult to access. Some people did in fact resort to beer rather than stomaching the dirty water. However, this wasn't the majority. And if you head to a bar on an average Saturday night out, you'll still see plenty of people choosing alcohol over water, but not for the same reasons. Red cars going faster is a well-busted myth. But what about the price of insurance? Some people believe that because of the flashy color, it might be an indicator for insurance companies that the driver is a little more dangerous. Speed demons can rest assured, though. If a red car is what you desire, there is no red insurance fee. Instead, the factors that are used by a company to calculate insurance are the type of car, the age of the driver, how often they drive, and where they drive. So your premium will be likely higher if you're an 18-year-old driving a red Ferrari, but it has nothing to do with the color. These days, the word natural is one of the best marketing tools. For good reason, most of us have come to associate artificial chemicals and high-processed foods or products as unhealthy. While this is sometimes the case, it's not always. And it certainly doesn't mean that everything natural is better for your health. The most effective medicines we have to fight against disease and illness do not spontaneously produce in nature, but they are still incredibly beneficial for our health. And vice versa. Many natural products have been linked to serious side effects. For instance, the natural crop of kava used for anxiety has been found to cause liver damage. So, what are some other debunked facts that we missed? Let me know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and check out our social medias, including my personal ones, links in that description. And if you like this list, you need to click here for 25 facts about things you've always heard, but aren't true. So, kind of more of the same. Check it out.